Eleanor Vaughn woke up every morning just before sunrise in her small, lovingly maintained townhouse in Ashland. The town was quiet at that hour, wrapped in a calm that only early mornings could offer. Soft light filtered through the curtains, touching the walls she had painted herself years ago, walls that had once echoed with laughter, arguments, and the everyday chaos of family life. At 72, Eleanor moved slowly but deliberately, her body no longer quick, yet her mind sharp with memory. She brewed her coffee the same way she always had, letting the familiar smell fill the kitchen, then sat by the window to watch the street come alive. She had lived in this house for decades, building a life brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. Once, this place had been full of voices and purpose. Now, it was quiet, peaceful, but lonely in a way that lingered longer each day. Eleanor didn't fear growing old. What frightened her was the feeling that she was slowly fading from the lives of those she loved most, becoming something unnecessary. That fear became real the evening her son James invited her over for dinner. His voice on the phone sounded tight, careful, as if he were rehearsing every word. Eleanor dressed neatly that night, carrying a small dessert she had made herself, hoping for warmth and familiarity. But the moment she stepped inside James's home, she felt it, the tension, heavy and unspoken. Dinner passed with forced smiles and shallow conversation until James's wife, Caroline, finally spoke. Her tone was calm, polite, almost rehearsed, but the words she chose cut deeply. She spoke of stress, responsibility, and the future, then said the sentence Eleanor would carry with her forever: Eleanor was becoming a burden. No shouting followed, no argument. James stared at his plate. The silence said everything. Eleanor smiled faintly, thanked them for dinner, and drove home under darkening skies, her hands steady while her heart quietly shattered. That night, she sat alone in her living room, surrounded by a lifetime of memories, and realized something painful but clear: the place where she once belonged no longer existed. Days passed, and Eleanor replayed the conversation again and again, searching for anger, but finding none. Instead, she felt a calm acceptance settle in. She noticed how often she had been excluded, how rarely her opinions mattered, how gently but firmly she had been pushed aside. And in that realization, a thought took shape: if she was considered a burden here, she would remove herself entirely. Without telling anyone, Eleanor contacted a real estate agent. As the agent walked through her home, admiring the light, the garden, the warmth of the space, Eleanor felt pride instead of sadness. When she learned the house was worth more than she ever imagined, she understood this home was not just memory, it was freedom. Preparing it for sale was emotional but empowering. She packed away pieces of her past, gave away items she no longer needed, and thanked each room quietly for the life it had held. The house sold quickly. On the day she signed the final papers, Eleanor felt no regret, only readiness. She paid off her bills, organized her finances, and packed what truly mattered: a few clothes, cherished books, old journals, and small keepsakes filled with meaning. Before leaving, she wrote a short letter to James, not filled with anger, but with dignity and love, telling him she was safe and choosing a new path. At dawn, with one suitcase and steady resolve, Eleanor locked the door for the last time and walked away without looking back. Her journey began on a bus leaving Ashland, the road stretching ahead like a promise she had waited her whole life to keep. She traveled toward a quiet coastal town where the ocean met, the land with endless patience. When she arrived, the sound of waves greeted her like a welcome. Eleanor rented a small seaside cottage, simple but bright, with windows that opened to salt air and sky. Life slowed there. Mornings were spent walking along the shore, feeling the sand beneath her feet, listening to birds cry overhead. Afternoons found her in small cafes, talking to strangers who saw her not as old or unnecessary, but as interesting, curious, alive. She began writing again, filling journals with thoughts she had buried for years, about loss, freedom, and identity. She met others like herself, people who had chosen reinvention over resignation, people who understood that life did not end at a certain age. Together they shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments without expectation. Eleanor painted sunsets, learned to sit with her thoughts without fear, and rediscovered joy in simply existing. Slowly, she realized something profound. Her value had never been tied to how useful she was to others. It had always been hers. One evening, as the sun dipped into the ocean, painting the sky with gold and fire, Eleanor stood barefoot at the shoreline. The tide pulled gently at her feet, and for the first time in years, she felt light. She understood then that she had not been abandoned, she had been redirected. Aging had not erased her worth, it had refined it. She was not invisible, she was not a burden. She was a woman still becoming. As the next morning dawned over the sea, Eleanor Vaughn stepped forward with peace in her heart, knowing her story was not ending. It was finally, truly beginning, on her own terms.